The range-topping Porsche Panamera Turbo SE Hybrid Sport Turismo. It starts at an eye-watering $190,200, but you get 680 horsepower and 626 pounds-feet in return. Excuse the rather dirty condition of the car, but the weather was not very cooperative during our testing. This one is the Panamera Turbo Sport Turismo. We weren't planning to test this version at all, but someone kept running into the hybrid one just before it was due to be delivered. It uses the same twin-turbo V8, and because it's not lugging batteries around, it's 640 pounds lighter and has a bit more room for cargo. Drive it hard and you might see 10 mpg. Drive it like you're terrified of being stopped for speeding in Virginia and you might well get 28 mpg. Did you know Porsche almost made a four-door in the early 90s? It would have been called the 989, and many of its styling cues went on to be seen in the 996. If everything had gone to plan, you'd have read our review of Porsche's mighty Panamera Turbo SE Hybrid Sport Turismo last summer. Maybe one of the longest names of any car on sale today, it has the specs and a price tag to match. How does 680 horsepower, 507 kilowatts, 626 pounds-feet, 848 newton-meters, and a starting price of $190,200 sound? But things didn't go exactly according to plan. Somehow, other drivers kept driving into the back of the range-topping hybrid on Porsche's East Coast press fleet, necessitating some continued rescheduling that meant we didn't actually get any seat time in it until the last clutches of winter, hence, the snow in the pictures. However, it wasn't all calamity. To ameliorate one cancellation, the people at Porsche sent us a non-hybrid Panamera Turbo Sport Turismo, MSRP $155,500, 550 horsepower, 410 kilowatts, 567 pounds-feet, 768 newton-meters as a stand-in. That provided the opportunity to make some comparisons between the two most powerful Panameras and explore what difference 14.1 kilowatt-hours of lithium-ion batteries and a 134 horsepower, 100 kilowatts, 295 pounds-feet, 400 newton-meters electric motor make. Many of the technical specifications of both Turbo and Turbo SE Hybrid are the same as the shorter-named, less powerful, less expensive Panamera 4e Hybrid Sport Turismo, which we reviewed last year. They're all the same length, 198.8 inches, 5,050 millimeters, the same width, 76.3 inches, 1,938 millimeters, the same height, 56.4 inches, 1,432 millimeters, and have the same 116.1 inch, 2,949 millimeters wheelbase. They all feature the same suspension design, double wishbones at the front, wheels, multi-link at the rear, with adaptive air dampers, PASM and Porsche speak. All of them are all-wheel drive and use the same 8-speed PDK dual-clutch transmission, even down to the individual gear ratios. Where the Turbo and Turbo SE Hybrid differ from the much cheaper 4e Hybrid is in the engine bay, which is now filled by a 4.0L twin-turbo V8. It's a hot V design, which means the turbochargers live between the rows of cylinders on top of the engine rather than off either side of the engine block. This has a few benefits. It's more compact, so it can be better packaged in the engine bay. And because the distance that the charged air and exhaust gases have to travel are shorter, the turbines can spool more rapidly, which means better throttle response and less of the dreaded lag. Other nerdy little engine facts you can use to impress people include the fact that the engine has a square ratio, bore and stroke are both 86 millimeters, and that cylinder deactivation shuts down cylinders 2, 3, 5, and 8 to improve fuel economy under the right conditions. On its own, the V8 provides 550 horsepower and 567 pounds-feet, which is sufficient to accelerate the 4,486 pounds, 2,034 kilograms, turbo to 60 miles per hour in 3.4 seconds if it's equipped with the Sport Chrono option, or 3.6 seconds if it isn't. Add 0.2 seconds to both those times for the 0 to 100 km/h times. If you only speak metric, top speed on the Autobahn, obviously, is 188 miles per hour, 302 km/h. But in the Turbo SE Hybrid, the V8 does not act alone. The electric motor, which is located between the engine and transmission, adds an extra 130 horsepower and 295 pounds-feet to the party, which at least compensates for the heavier 5,126 pounds, 2,325 kilograms, curb weight. In fact, the addition of electric propulsion more than compensates, because 0 to 60 miles per hour in this version takes just 3.2 seconds. Again, add another 0.2 seconds for the 0 to 100 km/h time. And the top speed is a little higher at 192 miles per hour, 308 km/h, which again is pretty irrelevant to anyone outside of driving distance from an unrestricted German motorway. But when it comes to driving, the experience is remarkably similar in both cars. After all, the only times most of us perform a standing start up to highway speeds is exiting a toll booth, and few of us are sensitive enough to detect whether we got there in the same time it took a McLaren F1 or 200 milliseconds slower. How the Panamera turbos feel from behind the wheel depends a lot upon which drive mode you're in. You access these settings from the little dial that pokes out from the steering wheel's lowest spoke, and it rotates through Normal, Sport, Sport Plus, and in the case of the Hybrid, E-Power. In Normal, it feels like the car has been dipped in molasses. There's a heaviness about everything. The accelerator pedal needs a hefty shove to get moving. The steering isn't particularly light. You definitely feel the car's mass. Poke it hard, though, and it moves fast. It also sounds pretty darn good. V8s usually do, and this one has a hard-edged sound that says, "I'm small and powerful, not big and lazy," small being relative to the more massive V8s that you find under the hoods of domestic machines. In Sport and Sport Plus, some of that heaviness is gone, as the throttle mapping in particular makes the car more eager. But it's never going to feel nimble in the way a much lighter car does. Newtonian physics are like that, even with the optional rear-wheel steering. To get the most out of the car, you need to push the little button in the middle of the mode dial. This is called the Sport Response button. It gives you an extra burst of engine power for 20 seconds and puts the suspension and engine into their sportiest settings. Although one might struggle to differentiate the turbo from the Turbo SE Hybrid using the butt dyno, there are easier ways. For one, Porsche's hybrids wear acid green brake calipers and badge highlights, but oddly not seat belts, even as an option. For another, you'll definitely tell the difference when it's time to fill them up again. The Turbo has a massive 23.7-gallon 90L fuel tank, which gives it a hefty 500-mile 800 km range. The EPA fuel numbers are 18 mpg city, 23 mpg highway, and 20 mpg combined. Not great, but what you'd probably expect for a 550 horsepower wagon that weighs 2.2 tons. In fact, driving through the wilds of Virginia, where they exhibit almost no tolerance at all for breaking the speed limit, I was able to see 28 mpg while cruising at 55 miles per hour with the air conditioning running full blast. Conversely, if you want to hoon, as the kids say, prepare to see that number drop down to 10 mpg. The Turbo SE Hybrid, meanwhile, is rated at 48 mpg combined, or 20 mpg combined on gas alone, like the non-hybrid. With the same 14.1 kWh battery as the cheaper hybrid we reviewed last year, it too will do 14 miles on a full charge. That's perfect for running urban errands or even almost all of the average commuting distance. Recharging the battery takes 12 hours at 120 volts, or 3 hours at 240 volts if you option this $840 7.2 kilowatts onboard charger. The cabin is very well appointed, but it can feel a bit funereal if you spec it in black. The not hybrid one came with this tan leather interior. The Panamera's infotainment system is better than most. This style changes the drive modes. If you press the button in the middle of it, for 20 seconds you get full power and all the performance. Either side of the central tachometer are digital displays. You switch between them, with knurled metal jog wheels on the steering wheel spokes. Does this feel more like a Jaguar than a Porsche? The back seats are better for 2 than 3. The black panel center console shows fingerprints. There's haptic feedback so you know when you've pushed its buttons, though. If you need cargo volume, pick the non-hybrid version. All the rest of the stuff about living with either Turbo or Turbo SE Hybrid remains the same as it was for the Panamera 4e Hybrid last year. The cabin continues to be extremely well put together, with comfortable sport seats that adjust 14 different ways in the front. The Turbo SE Hybrid was even spec'd with 8-way rear power seats, $2,310, and both front and rear seat ventilation, $2,040, but you also get massaging front seats for that. If you and 3 other people have to spend some time sitting in traffic on a hot day, that's probably $4,350 well spent. The infotainment system is also identical. As part of Volkswagen Group, Porsche gets access to the MIB2 platform, which continues to be the best infotainment OS in our experience. Interestingly, VW Group just announced that it's joining automotive-grade Linux in the Linux Foundation, which we presume will underpin MIB3. The tile-based home screen is highly configurable, but I prefer Audi's virtual cockpit to the 2 smaller displays embedded in the main instrument panel in front of the driver. Although both cars are the Sport Turismo body style, they do differ when it comes to cargo volume. The Panamera Turbo has 18.3 cubic feet, 518 L, with the rear seats in use, or 49 cubic feet, 1,388 L, when you fold the rear seats flat. But the Panamera Turbo SE Hybrid drops that to 15 cubic feet, 425 L, and 45.7 cubic feet, 1,295 L respectively. The lost space is given over to lithium-ion. I do have a few nitpicks about the interiors, though. For one, the steering wheel rim is narrow in depth but quite wide, which feels a bit weird. And on a hot day, beware, if you've left the car parked in the sun, the metal paddle shifters behind the wheel can heat up to the point where they will burn your fingers. As to which one I'd pick, that really depends. They're both stupendously fast, but they're also stupendously expensive. For some people, buying the most expensive Panamera they can is the point, in which case, get the one with all the horsepower and the super long name. The fact that it's also a hybrid means that for some of the time, you're not killing the planet. For everyone else, my recommendation is, neither. The Panamera 4e Hybrid Sport Turismo we reviewed last year is for day-to-day use, almost as fast, goes as far on a charged battery, and starting at $106,900 is nearly half the price.